Okay, and we're back. Good morning, afternoon, everyone. Welcome to MVP Office Hours number Sexy 69. And we are going to get started. Let me just do a sound check. It's a little quiet out there. Can you guys still hear me okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Everyone using mute appropriately. That's awesome. So we're going to get started with a couple of ground rules. I'm filling in for Mr. Jared Kingston. He's on his way back from a client site. But really, it's pretty simple. It is an open line, so everyone please mute if you are not speaking. Sounds like that's already in place. In order to ask a question, go ahead and raise your hand inside of the ReadyTalk UI if you have a question. And if there are no questions, I will pick on somebody and get you to ask a question. But if you're just on observing, it's okay. This is what we want you to do. So if you have any other questions, concerns, or suggestions on how to improve MVP Office Hours, happy to take the feedback here. So my name is Joshua Hoskins. I am a solution architect with Aperio. I am based in London. Been here for 4 years, and I've been MVP for a number of years as well. And I have a couple of some rested other MVPs who are online as well after our shenanigans last week, and I will let them introduce themselves. So MVPs, if you please raise your hand inside the ReadyTalk area,
Hello.
And then I will get you guys to introduce yourselves one by one. All right, so we're going to go around the table and have the MVPs introduce themselves. And I see some folks that aren't raising their hands, but the folks that aren't, maybe you won't get chosen. We're going to start with Andy. Andy, over to you.
Howdy, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Cool. Howdy do, I'm Andy Betcher. I am up here in Minnesota and co-lead the Minnesota Developer Group.
Cool, thanks for joining, Andy. Brian?
Hi, I'm Brian Kwong. I am also known as the Salesforce and the co-leader for Wisconsin User Group.
I had to see Brian last week, and he actually does have the wizard hat, if anyone wants to know. Thanks for joining, Brian. Daniel?
Hey, this is Daniel Hoekst. I'm in Utah, and I'm the co-leader of the Utah Developer Group.
Cool. Thanks, Daniel.
Uh-huh.
Steve Moe?
Hi, I'm Steve Molis, and I'm up in Boston.
Thanks, Steve. Glad to have you. And Susan?
Hey, everybody. Susan Thayer. I am with SoChatty, and I am out of Omaha, Nebraska. So we have the Midwest represented here, it sounds like.
Absolutely. Good. Thanks for joining, Susan. Anyone else? All right. Looks like we've got everyone covered. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to the attendees. It seems like we've got a smaller group on the line. It's actually the Friday before a holiday, both in the U.S. and in the U.K. So let's go ahead and open up for questions. If you have a question, you can go ahead and chat it in the text area, or you can raise your hand. We'll call on you by name, and then one of the MVPs will be monitoring the chatter group on the Success community as well. So who wants to go first? I've got a couple of people. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to start with Jen. Are you out there?
Yes, I am.
Jen, what's your question?
So I built my very first flow, and it's working fine. It's sending out an email. What I would like, my next piece is if I should use a process, if I need to reference a flow. Because what I would like is I have an expiration date on my account. And if it's 7 days past that expiration date, I'd like to fire off that email in my flow. And then if they're still not updated, then every 7 days thereof, I want to keep firing that email as sort of a reminder. I know I can probably do that with timed workflow, but I don't know if I can reference my flow in that, or would you recommend doing it in a process builder? And if there's any recommendation on how I can do it in a process builder, or if I should do a Apex batch job.
Okay, so you have a couple of options. First, just to clarify, what is the current role set up in?
What was that again?
What did you use to set up the current role that you have? Are you using?
No, I don't have it. This is something completely new that I have to build. So my flow, it just sends out the email. It goes through the contacts and specific contacts. I put them in a variable, and it sends out that email. But I need to trigger that flow.
Okay, so it is a flow. Okay, I didn't know if it was a workflow, a business process
flow. It's a flow.
There's a million times of flows right now. Okay, cool. So over to the MVPs. Who wants to take this one? This is more declarative and configuration.
I can answer that. So you'll need to use a process if you want to have, and then use the process to fire the flow. The flow by itself does not get fired when a record gets modified. So you'll have to have a process on your object, set the criteria just like you would a workflow row. And then you can have what they call scheduled actions. Now the downside to this is you can only set so many scheduled actions based on a specific date. Just like you can with, I think, time-based workflow rows, you can only do so many different times when the workflow is going to send something out, like in 7 days or 14 days or whatever. There's not a really good way declaratively to go through and say, basically do the, until this value changes, keep sending this email every X many days. So usually the handoff is you either use a process or a workflow rule and just set up your scheduled actions hard code them to say, this time it's going to fire 7 days after, this one's 14 days after, and 21 days after, and so forth. But you're going to be limited to how many of those you can do. If you truly want to do something where it's going to take a look at if your opportunity hasn't changed or not, and then send that email out, then you're going to have to go and do code.
Thanks. I'd add one more question. What's the real action that you're trying to trigger someone to do with the email?
I send out that email. It's just to remind them, hey, you're expired. You need to renew.
Okay. This is going to the customer, or is it an
it's going to
email?
A customer. It's a customer.
Okay. And the last question would be, how many times would you want them to get it before you stopped sort of letting them know that they had expired?
Well, the project owner, the customer care team would like to send that until they renew. But I'm guessing there's a limitation to
that's the point where I'm getting at. There's probably a reason for that limitation, because someone getting something for 7 days may get kind of annoying.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, this is Steve. I would probably include, if you don't have an opt-out field, add one and add that as a condition to your whatever road you go down, trigger, workflow, process, whatever. So that if somebody does, after like the 6th, 7th, 8th reminder says, okay, enough, I'm tapping out, you don't continue to barrage them with, email number 10, email number 11, email number 12. You're probably going to want to have it evaluate some other thing that, besides just the fact that, hey, they haven't renewed yet. I don't know why they haven't renewed. We only sent them 27 reminders.
Right.
Oh, our customer satisfaction scores are so low. Just saying.
Great way of putting it, Steve. Thank you. Hey, Jen, is that helpful?
Yeah, scheduled actions is what I need to look at.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay. Thanks
for asking your question. Yep. All right. Next up, I have Susan. Susan, are you out there? Susan Davis. All right. We'll come back to you, Susan. Sounds like you're having audio problems. So, Squire?
Hey, Squire Kirshner, developer in Milwaukee. Kind of a weird one. We turned on user sharing due to the way our business orgs are divided within our org, and so we wanted to make sure that when we're using our groups and et cetera in Chatter, we weren't accidentally sharing across business units. So we turned on user sharing. I have sharing rules in place that allow members of the individual roles to see each other, role and subordinates, I should say, which is working swimmingly with one exception. The Chatter-free users that we have that come in just to collaborate, no one can see them, and because most of our groups are private, when they want to join a private group, no one knows that they've asked for access except for the admins. And I can't seem to figure out a way to get a sharing rule open to let the whole world see the Chatter-free users. Am I missing something?
That's interesting. It's an interesting use case. I've never come across it. Any other MVPs? As I sit here and listen to you, I'm Googling frantically.
Yeah,
I've
tried everything.
Other VPs?
No, I don't really have an answer, Squire. But if you came to yesterday's the user group meeting in Milwaukee, you could have asked the question then.
I was supposed to be there. Let's I'll take that one offline, Brian.
Okay. Well, I just typed it into Google, and there happens to be a knowledge article out there as well. And the resolution is, due to the fact that Chatter-free users do not have a role, they are restricted sharing users. This means that sharing rules and manual sharing rules do not apply to any users with Chatter-free users. To work around this, private Chatter groups can provide access to users within the group. Additionally, communities can be leveraged to open up sharing and giving visibility access.
So I read that one, and I couldn't tell. Maybe I read too much into it. It felt like that was directed toward the Chatter-free user having access to everyone else. But did I misread the way that you read it?
I think it's probably both ways, because
okay.
I think it's both ways, because if you turn the sharing on, then you have to share it. And when you share the users with each other, what are the options when you're creating that criteria-based sharing rules?
Yeah, so when I wrote that rule, I was thinking I can say anybody we have business unit as a pick list that's associated with every user. So we say, everybody with a Chatter business unit, share those with all of these specific roles. And so what I was assuming would happen is that I'd be able to identify specific users and share them to the role, not necessarily the other direction.
Okay.
But if you're reading that the way it sounds like you're reading it, maybe it works in both ways, and so in which case there is no sharing to those users. It's a real challenge for us, because we've got some kind of strict guidelines as far as our Chatter groups to try to keep everything independent, and because no one can see them trying to get into the group, then no one knows that they want into the group, and then we have a lot of emails, which takes away from the value of Chatter. So.
Yep. Totally got you that. So the other question would be, why not do like a Visualforce page with Apex that, with obviously sharing with, what is that? I guess without sharing. Yeah, so a class without sharing that powers a Visualforce page for people to subscribe, so you can probably get through those sharing rules and people can still search. Not intuitive, but I mean, what do you guys think? Could that work? Looking for validation. It might be an alternative way. If you're just getting people to apply to groups, if you had sharing off on a Visualforce page, you could actually have them subscribe to the groups maybe through another way, and you could do that with Apex.
Sure, and then have the we don't really have moderators, but whoever the group chair is to evaluate the. Yeah, but yeah, okay, I see where you're headed with that. I might have to look at that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Cool. Any other comments on that? Cool. It sounds like you have a user group meeting to go to soon. You owe somebody.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, Susan, you're back. I'm not sure if your audio working now?
I hope so.
There you go. Yep, we can hear you. I see your
Okay,
question in
good.
the chat too, but for the benefit of everyone else, go ahead and state your question.
Yeah, I had to open a case with Salesforce. We have two custom objects classes and seminars, and we used to be able to do a wildcard search to pull up those objects with just the date, and then that stopped working about, I guess, a couple days ago. Salesforce doesn't know why, and does anyone have any idea if it's related to the summer release, when they start pushing stuff out ahead of time? I'm just wondering if anyone else is having that problem, or my users are getting frustrated.
Okay. Sorry to hear for that. I have a couple of ideas. Any other NVPs out there want to take a stab? All right. I'll just start out. So let's start with the desire to do wildcard searches by date. What exactly are you searching on, and what do you expect for the results to be?
Well, when they used to go to the home search box where it even says search all, they would put in, like, say, example, an asterisk 5/29/2015, and it would actually pull up class and seminar registration objects in a list, and now it doesn't anymore. I personally have never searched that way, but my users say that they did. And I don't know if anything's changed in Salesforce or if any of you all are aware of anything that's changed. My case is still open.
Yep. Okay.
You all experts, you might know something more.
You know a little bit more. So you're basically using that search because in one screen you can see two objects, not just one with a report. Is that right?
Well, they used to just, in search all, we can choose our custom objects, or we can even go to advanced search and select, say, the two custom object classes and seminars using the asterisk.
That sounds like, is that sidebar search? Where is your search bar? Is it in the sidebar, or is it at the top next to the logo?
We don't use Chatter, so it's in the sidebar.
Oh.
And that is seeing that they wouldn't answer that. It's because we're not using Chatter.
I mean, I'll let you finish, but I mean, it depends, right? Was that Daniel speaking?
Yeah.
Daniel, do you want to go a little further?
Well, my guess is that since you're using the old sidebar search, which is hardly even, I don't know how many customers are using it these days, but they've made a lot of changes in the search, and we use the global search, the new one, so it's hard to say exactly what's going on there.
Now, that can't be used without Chatter and being enabled, is that right?
Well, you can now, they've made some enhancements since they first rolled out Chatter, where you can enable a lot more things that used to require Chatter.
Yeah, that's true. You could turn
one of them.
Yeah, you can turn Chatter on, and then because they have ability to roll out Chatter to users now, so now you can turn Chatter on but not give any users Chatter, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how would that work? I mean, how would I do that? I thought it was global.
There's a profile permission.
Yeah, you might have to open a case with Salesforce on it to enable it in your org, but let's see here if I can do a quick
search. And have no users see it? I mean, would they do that? But is that related to the global search, and is there a way to turn that on without Chatter? We're a franchise business, so we don't like people chatting with each other, and we just don't have any use for it. I realize Salesforce is pushing it.
Can I ask a really quick question? I wasn't aware you could search date fields through global search or sidebar. I thought it was always the text strings and non-date fields.
Well, that's what I'm wondering too, is what fields are actually being returned.
Right.
Yeah, and the thing is, I've never actually searched this way, so I'm going by what my users are telling me, and more than one user has mentioned it. So apparently,
the reason I ask is because the only time I've ever seen that function correctly is because someone's got automation to rename objects to put a date in the text string, and so by default they think they're searching for a date when they're really getting a text string or a description string.
Exactly.
But it just used to work, and now it doesn't, and that's the case I have open with Salesforce. And does anyone know how
It's interesting that it would. It's interesting that it would change kind of in the middle of a release. Do you think this happened a while ago with the spring release and nobody just mentioned it until now or noticed it?
I got very vocal users. It just happened, I guess this week, a couple days ago.
Okay.
Yeah,
And did anything change from an admin standpoint? Did you change any fields or any tabs or anything?
No.
Yeah, I'm thinking you could maybe search the change audit log or the audit log to see if you or anyone else who has admin rights might have changed something, because something changed.
Okay, and I'm sorry, where would I look?
If you go into setup, you can just up in the setup search bar over on the left, just type in audit and you'll find it that way.
Oh, you mean the setup audit trail? Would that actually tell me anything?
Yeah. Well, it'll at least give you something to start looking.
Will it tell me if Salesforce any changes?
Well, has any of the orgs actually gone to summer in production? I don't think anything's launched yet, have they?
Anyone's rolling out now. So
on summer, but our production is not.
Okay.
So I just don't, and you're saying with this old search, like how do I get the global search?
Well, I don't even know if global search will solve your problem because,
right.
I mean, I just tested search. I just searched by date in one of my orgs, and the only things I got back were objects that had a date field and a text field that's searchable. So
in a text field, that's searchable.
Yeah,
right. And
so I mean, I didn't get anything else. So I mean, maybe that's what they're searching. Do you know what kind of records they're getting back? Could you look at those records, and look and see what fields are on that, and if some of those fields have dates in them?
It returns nothing.
Well, I know, but if they could tell you, well, when I would search and this would be the type of record I would get back, could you look at one of those records and to sort of back end it and try to figure out which field that they were searching on? Because maybe something changed to make that field not searchable anymore, or
maybe something changed with the data, right?
Right.
Maybe
yeah.
Dates aren't being entered in the text field.
Right.
Okay, I'll have to go back through my email threads and see how the user actually finds this information. And I realize there are workarounds like list views and reports, but, I thought maybe someone else was experiencing this, but no one else uses my old school search. So.
Well, I mean, the good thing is you have a way to back into it, right? If they can even get the date that they used to look up on an old record, as long as it's there, you should be able to replicate what they used to do and compare that back. The other thing I would say is that Salesforce is wholly based on indexing, and depending on what's going on, sometimes they rebuild indexes, and it just takes a while for them. If you have a really big org with a lot of records, sometimes when you create a record, it also takes some time to index it. All this stuff goes on in the background without us knowing. So the Salesforce support group would be able to tell you whether it's currently being indexed, but they don't normally report that they're re-indexing things because it's just a process that starts and it finishes whenever it finishes.
Okay, that's possible. And I also checked if this the object is the checkbox is it's being indexed for those objects.
Okay.
So,
yeah, and so that's a good thing. So if they're being indexed, they must be a text field then, yeah?
Let me look.
Yeah.
Take a look here. And that's a date field.
And there's a checkbox to index it next to it?
Well, what I'm looking at is, I'm assuming when the class field itself is a text field, like the class name, which contains the date, and that's how they use.
Is that what they're searching on?
Yeah, like the class is an object, so it's like Minneapolis Professional Trader 52915. That's like the string that they used to be able to search on, according to what they're telling me. And now they can't any longer, and that class ID is indexed, and the class name actually is not. Huh. Should I just check the index box?
Well, you can't check that.
Sorry?
Well,
yeah, the box. You can't check the index box it just indicates whether or not it's an indexed field, which is determined by whether or not it's like an external key or other. There's a couple other ways that it can become indexed, but you can't force a field to be indexed automatically. I'm wondering if it just is something to change with how the search is actually working, because I don't think in search that you can prepend, you can put a wildcard at the beginning of your search.
Yeah, I don't see how they would find any results using the search as they showed it to me. So they're all claiming that this used to work, and I had a couple of users, not more, more than one. And so since myself have never used the search that way, I'm more a list view report person. I have an open case with Salesforce, so maybe it is the indexing thing that you said, and it's happening. And
that's a good point. But do know that you can request, if you have a compelling use case, to have Salesforce create custom indexes. So I would still, if they render the decision on your case, just ask them what's the procedure to index that field. I haven't used the search functionality in the sidebar in a long time, so I question the wildcard. But it sounds like you have very vocal users and what's happening at some point in time. So if the index button isn't checked there right now, I would ask Salesforce, what are your options to index it.
Okay, I'm back and forthing with my case comments, so I will definitely put that in there. And now you said that global search is only used if you enable chatter.
Right, you could enable chatter, but then disable it for all your profiles. So you could do that in your sandbox and see if it works.
Yeah, I wish I could, but we have so much integration into Salesforce that anything I do breaks the schema for our developers. So I'll have to check with them first and make sure I can do that.
You may want to try it in a sandbox.
Yeah, I can't just. The sandbox schema also will break. We
do you have a second sandbox?
I have just a second sandbox that has no data, which isn't going to help. So.
You could create just that one record inside of there and just wait 5 minutes and then try to search it. I mean, you just really need an empty sandbox with one record.
I guess that would be something I could try. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I was testing it in my test org, and I added a date to the name of a field, of a record, and I'm not able to search on, let's say, 5/21, but if I search on 21, it works. So it's something to do with that slash that's kind of breaking it, if that's what they're using. Does that make sense?
Okay. Well, it's just that they had sent me screenshots and said, this used to work, and I'm like, I don't have an answer for them, except that, look, we'll get used to list views and reports, but I don't want to belabor this because it looks like it's something that may have changed, and also users sometimes don't know where or how they're doing things because it does work in a lookup. So thank you.
Yeah, one last idea, and then I can let you go. Also, double check their browser. I know sometimes little patches come in and out, and since those global search windows use a lot of the browser integrated search strings, like it might. I'm making something up here, but if Firefox suddenly is evaluating that backslash in a weird way, that suddenly it's dividing the search string versus using it as a character or something to that extent.
Right.
Just poke around a little bit, see if the browser changes how it reacts as well.
Okay, and switching browsers probably wouldn't hurt, huh?
Yeah, everybody should use Chrome in my opinion.
Well, yeah, I use Chrome. It's not working. I'll make up something to answer my users. Thank you.
You certainly exhausted your options, so good.
Be like, hey, it's trying to do math. Stop doing it that way.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Julie, you're out there?
I am here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Yes.
Yes. I have two. The first is really quick. Where did schedule maintenance go? Because on trust.salesforce.com, I can't find the release windows, the maintenance windows. They seem to have disappeared.
So it's definitely have a new layout.
Yeah, it's still there.
Where?
Well, so you have to click on your instance. So they don't have a global, as far as I haven't found it yet. So if you click on the instance, then you'll get a maintenance calendar pop up.
All right, that was nice. Okay, cool. So next question. It's about actions. So I have 2 custom objects, and they're called visit and attendee. And on my visit object, I want to have an action to create an attendee record. The attendee is related to the visit through a basic, just a lookup. And it's not showing in my create a record drop-down action types. I can see like another type of custom object to create, but not my attendee object. I don't know why.
So it's just a lookup, not a master detail?
It's just a lookup. Does it have to be master detail to be a target?
I think so, yes.
Yes, that would be my first indication as well, because else you wouldn't really understand which relation you need to create. But if you have it in master detail and you're making it related, then it would automatically assume that.
Okay.
So then the question is, will you ever have any attendees? Or that lookup will be no, because in order to make it a master detail, you'll have to make sure that all of the attendees are associated to at least one visit.
Yeah, what I'll probably do is have a developer develop something so I don't have to go through that headache. So I will check and see if I can make it a master detail, but I already have at least one master detail on that record. I need to see if I have room to even add another one and then look at the data to see if I have any orphans. So I shouldn't have orphans, but you never know.
Yeah, you never know. All right.
Yeah, you can make something a junction by having 2 master details, but if you do that, then that has ramifications, because then you can't have any master details below that junction. So that would be...
Oh, that's good to know. Okay, I didn't know that. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
That is good to know. Cool, thanks. All right. Seems like we're out of questions. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, has anyone read the summer 15 release notes, and is there anything exciting I should know about? I haven't had a chance to look.
Everything's exciting. Yeah.
Not when you're a developer-heavy org. Most of the stuff we don't use. I just haven't read. I don't know if there's anything mind-boggling that I can let my users know about, or that will even affect them.
That's a good question.
I guess I should read them real quick now.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you really don't have to read them. One thing that I do know is that there is actually a whole marketing team that's assigned to the release marketing now. And if you look in the success communities, there's probably a group there that talks about release that will give you like a summary of everything that's going on. But there's also release webinars as well that you can watch to attend. If you ask us, I think all of the MVPs in this call, well, probably not me, but
I usually wait for the training videos to come out.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the best time to wait. And I know
they're not out yet.
Them all the time. Yeah, they're busy. They're busy bees.
Yeah, I can't read 300 pages of stuff. Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Cool, no problem. Any other questions out there?
Okay, I'll ask another random question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. No, go ahead.
Okay. So it looks like in Summer 15 they're auto-enabling the predictable iteration order for Apex unordered collection. And so we have to do some regression. I know. We have to do some regression testing, and we have some new guys, and I'm just looking for, do you guys have any like best practices or hints for testing that critical update before it's, in our full sandbox now that we're on Summer 15 there?
Any other MVPs?
This is Andy. I know I've been personally impacted by that. And actually, we have Financial Force actually, and they released a bulletin that they're impacted by this. But so I know it's out there in the wild and it is impacting a number of people. I would say from like a best practice standpoint, just trying to think of a good way to quickly rip out a response on that. Do you all understand like what the update is actually looking to do, or are you looking for that as well?
Well, if you could give I think I kind of sort of understand it, but if you could give a summary, then that would be helpful.
So from really how I understand it, as you're inserting records into a set or a list or a map, sets and maps specifically, the way that those are automatically ordered inside of that set and map are going to be modified or set for you. Whereas in the past, kind of the order you stuck it in there is kind of the order it came back out. Any other developers in the call want to confirm that for me? That's my understanding of it.
Yeah,
right.
I think you got it pretty good.
Okay, cool. So in really where it impacts you is if your developers have populated a list or it's not really even a list, it's more of sets and maps. If you've populated sets and maps where you are filling it with data in a certain order and then your code is going to pull that back out expecting it to be in the same order that you put it in there, that's where you want to focus your efforts. Typically, from like a best practice standpoint, I personally use sets and maps more for kind of an indexed. This is a horrible way to say this, but an indexed in-memory database of things that I'm looking to throw into a SQL query or update based on results of something else, not for a ordered list of operations or displaying something out of a set or a map on a Visualforce page. So I would say, if you wanted to give your developer something to start on, to say, hey, go look to see where you're using maps and sets specifically and make sure that you're just populating and then indexing or getting the indexed answers out of there versus iterating through a set or a map and expecting the same results.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that 99% of our maps and sets are what you described, so I think we're okay where we're just basically putting them in there and then using them to, for SQL or to update something. And we don't really care about the order one way or another. But I will double check and maybe start looking with Visualforce pages that we have that might actually show a list in a certain order to see. But I think we actually specify the order for all of those, so that should be okay in the Visualforce page.
With lists specifically, because you can do sorts through Apex in lists. As long as you on the way out of your method that you're doing the sort, either if you're extending unsortable through a list of a inner class or you're just using the native S-object list, as long as you're doing that on the way out, then it should be fine. It's just the initial population of data into the object. And like I said, I'm focusing more on sets and maps than lists personally.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
This is Marty. Just a comment on that. Wouldn't it be fair to say that if the API version of the Apex classes don't change, that they wouldn't be impacted by this update?
Not for this one, no.
Not for this one, exactly.
This is kind of, I think my understanding of this one is behind the scenes. This is due to a Java runtime update. And so I believe what has happened was people were relying on an order, and it was kind of a side effect that wasn't expected. And then because of the Java runtime beneath everything, and then Salesforce is updating that Java runtime, which is now causing changes. And because that Java runtime is not tied to an API version, every API is impacted.
So I guess, I think that's helpful to know. Then I guess the follow-up comment would be, could we expect that Apex tests would fail if there was code that was expecting maps to be ordered in a certain way that are no longer, assuming that the tests were written well, that those would expose the flaws before it hit the I understand it's a big assumption, but I just wanted to make sure that we can still rely on our Apex tests.
If you're doing assertions around the ordering of that stuff, if you actually have outputs that have assertions wrapped around the processing of them, then yeah, if like you said, the big assumption is yes, then your assumption should catch it. But again, like you said, that's a big assumption. If I personally, if I had a map or a set that I was just filling with stuff, and then if I had an assertion based on if I updated a certain record and I was just pulling the index out of the map or the set, that wouldn't necessarily be caught or flagged as a test failure because of this. But if I was iterating through saying if I wanted to stick stuff in there in ABCD format and all of a sudden it comes out as DCBA and I'm checking I'm asserting the order they're in there, then that would be caught.
Okay, thank you. List and maps. All right, next, let's go to Rob. So Rob's actually posted his question in the chat. I hope everyone else can see it. Rob, are you out there?
I'm here. Is that Jared?
It's Joshua.
Who's leading today? Oh, hi, Josh. You're leading today. Great.
Okay, Rob, you just want to go ahead and restate your question for those who are out there?
Yeah, thanks. And thanks, everybody, for attending. This is basically a best practice question. Up to this point, I've been using opportunity record types matched one-to-one with some page layouts in order to manage fields post-closed, post-approved. So essentially, to preserve an audit record. Nobody can go in a month or two after an opportunity is closed and either accidentally or intentionally change, for example, either a revenue amount or perhaps a close date. So it has kind of the advantage of what I will call audit or security prevention. However, I'm finding that there is an increasing business need that a non-sales department, let's call it the delivery team, which also goes into opportunities a great deal, they're requesting that we, and I'm kind of quoting them here editorially, they're requesting that we get rid of all those fields we don't need, which to me just means change the layout for a profile that would be specific to the delivery team. So I'm considering abandoning using record types to kind of manage field security and moving to profiles, and they're having a one-to-one relationship with page layouts. So I reduce the layouts the delivery team sees, maintain the fields that the opportunity and sales see, and then use a combination of, let's say, stages and permission sets in order to lock down certain fields that I don't want anybody to change. So I see this as kind of a choice in the road, and I was kind of curious if people had good advice when faced with this choice.
So one of the things I would say on this is that so you want them to be able to edit a field at one point, but then later on not edit it? Is that
Correct.
What I heard? Yeah.
Correct.
So you can do that with, say, a validation rule, whereas you keep one page layout and then have a validation rule. The problem with that is then your user experience is going to be a little poor because the user is going to see it as an editable field. They're going to go try to change the field, and then your validation rule is going to yell at them after they've made the changes. So having a page layout that locks the field so they can't even edit it is, in my opinion, a better user experience. And lets them realize right away that they can't touch that field.
Yeah, I guess I had a brain skip there. You said blocks the field before they can edit it?
Well,
so
not locks it, but... So
what I'm saying, what I want to do with the profile is actually say, okay, given your profile, this field is non-editable. You can't go into it.
Yeah, and
that's my intention.
Okay. So it's not that they need to edit it at a certain point in the stage. They just never need to be able can never edit it.
Let's take two cases here, Joshua. For the delivery team, across time, the field accessibility does not vary. So whether it's early in a stage or post the close, I generally don't want them to have any editability on, let's call it, a set of 10 of the fields. Okay. Because generally they're not selling, so there's no reason for them to go in there and change those fields. So I'm either going to lock them from their display or not even show them on their display, on their page layout. The delivery person won't see certain fields, and other fields they just can't go in and they just cannot change. However, our salesperson, okay, given early stages in the opportunity, he can change those fields. They're editable. Once the opportunity is closed, then the validation rule would use the stage of closed one, okay, to prevent him from going in and changing, let's say, a revenue number or a close date after the fact. Does that paint a clearer picture what I'm visualizing?
Yeah. So I mean, I still think you should have the idea of having page layouts assigned to your stages as well to lock those fields, because what you don't want is your sales guy coming along and to a closed opportunity and seeing that a field he thinks is editable because the page layout lets him edit the field, right? He can click edit or double click on the field and make a change to it.
Right.
But then he'll do
then
a valid.
When he tries to save, the VR will kick him out and say you can't do that.
Right, and then so what I'm saying is that's, in my opinion, a bad user experience. The users will get frustrated because they think they can edit it, but it doesn't tell them until after they've done all of this work. So I think it's sometimes better to lock, basically to lock it down in that case. So lock it with a page with a page layout.
Down how in
page layout. So
what manages the page layout? What determines?
Well, you would still have to have a record type. So you would still have to do your record types how you're doing it now with your record types. But you would basically you wouldn't be one-to-one record type to page layout or one-to-one profile to page layout. It would be you could have this profile with this record type has a page layout, and this profile with this record type has a different page layout. So I think you need a combination of the two.
I'd agree.
Yeah.
You're at that point where everybody likes to go one-to-one because it's so easy to administer. But at some point, you got to hybridize it, and you got to use both pieces, which is it's ugly, and it takes a lot more documentation.
And it ends up being end-to-end instead of one-to-one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Yike. I'm tempted to write down your good advice, recognize that, yes, this is what experts are telling me, but maybe in the short term try and get away with the way I'm visualizing it and just put the help bubble in there and do a lot of training and saying, look, don't expect to be able to do this, because once this is closed one, you're not going to be able to edit this field.
Yeah, you can go that. Another thing you could possibly do is I sometimes will put a little Visualforce page component on the view on the page layout that will display messages to the user, kind of give them instructions based on what the stage is. So so that's another way that you could give some guidance to your users before they start working on it.
And that's a really cool idea, because in order to create a Visualforce, that gives them rules. As long as the rules are based upon the fields within the same object, you can create that without having to create any code, because it's just using a standard controller.
Yep. Yeah, it's just Visualforce. You just basically you can just have a bunch of sort of if blocks, or rendered blocks that you say, I want to render this block if the stage is this, I want to render this block if the stage is this, and each block is just text.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, I'm imagining, and I've not done any Visualforce pages before, but based on my limited understanding, you're all going to push me into the water. I love it. But I'm imagining that Visualforce page could pop just as they change the stage. Almost as a workflow rule. You're about to go to closed one. The following fields will be locked from you. Are you sure you want to close one? And the guy says, okay, I see the message, and he hits close one.
Well, you won't be able to do that with a Visualforce page.
Okay, I jumped the shark there. Sorry.
You can make it a flow, I guess. Dive into a flow and make it. The only way to get to that stage is with a button to fire it off and ask all those questions.
Yeah, there you go.
You could do that. I see wheels turning. Someone has a bit of homework over the weekend, the long holiday weekend.
Yeah, I'm dying to work over the holiday weekend. But I actually have been dying to do a decent flow other than just what I kind of ran through in Trail. Okay. That gives me something to noodle about, and that's why I come to these calls. Thank you.
All right. Cool. Next question. You know who you are, Kirshner.
Squire, yeah.
Squire,
so,
I got it right the first time. Okay.
That's all right. I bugged Brian with Twitter a week and a half ago about something we were dealing with during a release. Just wanted to get some more heads on it. We were having an issue where a process builder that was designed in the sandbox, we could not, a process designed with process builder, we couldn't promote it with our normal Eclipse-based release process. We had to use a change set to get it up the chain. It was putting it in the flow list versus in the process builder, and then it was adding a bunch of random or seemingly random variables and other things. Has anyone experienced similar issues?
Can you repeat the issue? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
That's okay. So we developed a process with Process Builder in a sandbox, but we use Eclipse to take a snapshot and push it into our release process. So in order to get it from our sandbox to our STIT environment to get it up the chain, normally we use Eclipse, but when we did it with Eclipse, it wasn't generating the end result in the sandbox we expected. It was putting it in like the flow list. It wasn't actually in Process Builder. It added some variables and took some out, and we ended up having to use an actual change set and then release that to every environment up the flow, which is kind of an exception for us. I just wanted to make sure that if it was kind of a known thing, like, yeah, they're working that out, or if I missed something entirely. Or
This is Andy. The first thing that hits my gut is what version of the Force.com IDE plugin are you using in your Eclipse?
Yeah, we were looking at that right away, and the challenge we were having is that because the sandboxes were jumping in and out of environments due to like the refresh cycles, we were wondering if it could just be that I think we started at, I think it was 31, and then at one point it was 33 because of the summer in one of the environments. Is it possibly tied to that?
Well, when it comes to snapshotting out your schema, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what. Kind of doesn't matter what the orgs API or what the org's at. It's really on what your Eclipse is at. So if you're running, say, like 28, which may not have all of the stuff that Process Builder and Flow have enabled in the current versions that you're building in the org with, it's only going to pull out what version 8 or version 28 is going to pull out, which might end up giving you some really weird results.
Okay.
I know just recently they released, I think, V31. I think it's 31. They just put out for Eclipse. You can take one of your Eclipse boxes, just go through the upgrade process inside Eclipse to get it up to the latest one, and then see if you get different results. I'll bet you that's what it is.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, we cranked it up as high as it would go without really thinking that it would be higher. So it's a good point. Well, I'll take that away.
Yeah, and I can also mention that I've done it with Ant, so just using the Ant migration tool and pulled stuff out and pushed it into another org, and it's put in the right place. So you could try that too if you have any knowledge with Ant, just to test it, do a retrieve from one org, and then do a deploy to another org.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Well, then I will leave you with this. On your screen, you see some information around Midwest Streamin' 2015. It's going to be in Chicago, and that's going to be July 9th and 10th. We've got a jam-packed agenda for you. I'm sure Eric is very, very hard at work at that. He's the user group leader for that area. And two awesome keynote speakers are going to be Peter Coffey, which I just saw earlier this week, and Dan. Someone's not happy about Peter. But Peter and Dan are going to be there, and registration is currently open, and I encourage you to attend. These types of events are very near and dear to my heart because in Orlando I had the opportunity to jumpstart these types of events. And the whole idea in these types of events was that not everyone can actually experience Dreamforce if you've had the opportunity to do that. And one year I went to Dreamforce and I saw all this amazing stuff. And I was like, how do I bring this back to the people that are at home that couldn't go to Dreamforce because of a recession? And so Eric is one of the first people who were able to clone that idea and sort of operationalize it in a different region. And he's been going strong ever since. So definitely encourage you guys to go. Maybe if it's closer to you, we've got a lot of Midwest people on the phone. So please do go. And there are also sponsorship opportunities available. So you've got, good people, great speakers, awesome keynote speakers from Salesforce. It's probably a day fun. It's only one day. It's actually 2 days, which is a major accomplishment, and as the event grows. All right, and I think we have one more question. We've got 3 minutes left, so Julie?
Actually, it was a clarification. So I was looking into my whole action question about why I couldn't create an action, and we thought it was because it needed to be a master detail. And I don't think it's that. I think it's because the record I was trying to create has a master detail to context, so it can't possibly. I think it's because it can't do that.
Yeah, unless you can somehow put the contact record on that action.
Right, which, I could make it a required field, but I think that's why it's not going to be available in the drop-down, because I have that other detail. Because I did have another one there that didn't have a master detail. I was like, well, that can't be right. So figured it out. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, no worries. Anytime. All right, guys, that's a wrap. Thank you for attending MVP Office Hours. Next one will be in 2 weeks, as long as it's not a holiday or someplace where people shouldn't really be on a call. And we'll set that up probably early next week. So thanks for attending, and everyone have a great weekend.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.